Welcome back. I am John P. Today we are going to be talking about Rolex and the rumors that are floating around out there about how they are going to begin to start selling pre-owned, certified pre-owned watches. This is something I've talked about and predicted in the past, not only from the Rolex brand, but other brands. And many brands, if not most brands, in some way have started doing this by way of acquisition of pre-owned watch dealers, such as what you saw happen with Watchfinder, as well as LVMH purchasing Hodinkee, or a part of it which had purchased Crown and Caliber, another popular online pre-owned e-commerce business. So we're going to be talking about this in just 1 second, as well as whether or not I think the rumors are actually true and what this means for you as a watch collector and buyer if Rolex starts controlling the secondhand market. Before I do that, on my wrist today, of course, I have my Rolex OP39 Red Grape. I love this thing. It seems to be my everyday wear, go anywhere, do anything type of watch. You can see more about this watch as my personal watches, as well as what goes on behind the scenes at Delray Watch on my Instagram, The Real John P. And while we're on the topic of Delray Watch, please do not forget to check out delraywatch.com where we buy, sell, and trade pre-owned watches. We have hundreds of watches in stock for you to take advantage of. And honestly, right now, it's kind of a pretty amazing time to buy because there's a little bit of a pullback in the market overall, and we're giving away some watches at some really great deals. So check that out, delraywatch.com. So what is this rumor that's floating around? Well, there'll be a link in the description below, but essentially there is a trade journal called Watch Pro that published an article, and sometimes we give information to Watch Pro, but it's a reputable trade journal where watch dealers are talked about, as well as brands, things that happen in the trade, as they call it. And there was an article just released that talks about some of the rumors that many, including us at Delray Watch, Federico and I, have heard recently within the last month or two about Rolex seriously considering selling certified pre-owned watches, much like you would see from, an auto dealership, right? Your Lexus dealership, or, for that matter, a Mercedes-Benz, where they have the certified options out there. Now, it's important to note that Rolex boutiques are third-party owned, right? So when you walk into a Rolex store, that is owned by a third party, especially here in the United States. When you walk in there, it's actually another company that owns this. They're typically an authorized dealer of other brands, sometimes not. But when you walk in, it has a very cookie cutter experience, but that is based on the rules set forth by Rolex in order to be the Rolex authorized dealer. Many of these have been in business for decades, for the most part, if not even a century for that matter. And so many of these authorized dealers and companies have been buying and selling pre-owned Rolexes anyway, pre-owned watches. They've been doing that because they've been third party. They sell other brands. They can do whatever they want. And the reality is pre-owned has become, or the secondary market has become, such a big industry, right? What happens if a watch is discontinued and you want to buy it? Well, you have to buy it pre-owned. What happens if you can't find the watch at the authorized dealer? Well, you have to buy it pre-owned. So even setting aside the fact that someone may want a better deal on a certain watch, in many circumstances, you just have to buy the watch from a non-primary source in those cases. And so this has been happening already, and you've had Rolex make subtle comments on this in the past and how they're okay with it. And without a doubt, the secondhand market has propped up the prices of Rolex watches and increased the demand, right? Because if they're trading at pre-owned for higher than retail, people would, of course, have no problem paying the retail price. Now, if we think of a slowing watch market, we won't get into that entirely today, but let's imagine the scenario of a slowing watch market, not as hot as we've seen through COVID and up until today. Let's say that scenario unfolds where Rolex does need to protect what they've really managed to accomplish in terms of the amazing demand for the watches, as well as people willingness to pay several times the retail price. How do they protect it? Well, they can either limit the supply so there's not too much supply out there, or they can control the secondhand or the used market, because that's the alternative, right? If we're looking at the alternative for someone that has to have a Rolex Submariner, well, you buy it pre-owned or you buy it new, right? So it's really the pre-owned watch, and they've created such a strong brand where there are alternative watch models from other brands out there, but people want the brand so much, the alternative is really just itself. buy it in the secondhand market, buy an older model, buy a different version of the watch, buy a 16800 instead of a modern day Submariner. They are their own product alternatives. And so when we consider that, I think that is a pretty brilliant play from them to protect themselves from what could be a potentially slowing market. Now, is there any validity behind this? Is Rolex actually going to be doing this, or are they testing out there and see if this is something that they should do? Well, there have been many authorized dealers that in different channels. I won't say too much, but there has been a lot of chatter in the market about maybe Rolex reps trickling out little bits of information or asking certain questions. There is also kind of a Project Timeless name for this plan that's being circulated around out there that does come from some credible sources. In addition, Rolex has really built out their service center, and you see it with their multi-story complex that they have in Dallas to repair and service the watches. They've also, in some cases, funded and incentivized authorized dealers to build their own Rolex authorized service centers in store to kind of speed up that process. And the reality is, it's not like Rolex has vamped up production to where all of a sudden they think they need more servicing. There is that kind of speculation that the building of all these service centers is going to be the foundation for the certified pre-owned Rolex market, right? Think of a way that you have, you go and buy a pre-owned car. Well, they have the used option, or they have the certified with the 10-point inspection and the guaranteed warranty for so many years. And we cover this, we go through that, the brakes, the tires, all of those types of things. And so when you look at that and you kind of factor that in and you look at other industries out there, I think really the evidence is there to support it. Now, this is something that Audemars Piguet has tried in the past in different varying degrees, and some may say it's been successful, and maybe some may say not so much. It's not something they've really pushed, but they've tried different things in the past with their boutiques and the way you could buy pre-owned, fully resealed Audemars Piguet refurbished watches. Now, most brands today have actually gone the easy route and just bought pre-owned dealers, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, with like LVMH, purchasing Hodinkee and Crown and Caliber, and you have Richemont with the Watchfinder, which helps prop up the prices for their brands, as well as, in a way, kind of control the secondary market for their customers and, retain value and incentivize people to not have to shop around looking for the best deals. And so I could see Rolex doing this, right? They'd be one of the last entrants, really. If you look at all the luxury watch brands, especially the major players, they'd be probably one of the last entrants to this particular segment of the market. But I do think that it's actually probably a pretty good thing for watch collectors if they do this, right? I think it will add a lot more validity. It'll add a lot of peace of mind to the first-time watch buyers, because the reality is, if you do want to walk into a retail place, let's say you don't want to shop with Del Rey Watch for whatever reason, we're online. If you want to walk into a retail establishment and try on the watch, you've never put a luxury watch on your wrist, something like that, this can kind of give you the peace of mind for that first experience. And then once you get the hang of it and realize it's not really that daunting, you can branch out and purchase online and shop around a bit. But I think it's kind of in that kind of way where, much like in the auto industry, it gives you a bit of peace of mind until you realize, some of these extra add-ons are, really just there for peace of mind, but maybe don't offer the utmost value long-term once you get the hang of what you're doing, whether it's car shopping or shopping for watches. And so that's really my take on the whole scenario. I'm really excited to see if this unfolds. If it does, it really does mean that Rolex is giving a lot of validity to the secondhand market. But on the flip side, we do have to consider that it will likely prop up the prices of the pre-owned watches, because they'll be setting the market prices. That protects them long-term, but as a caveat to that, how could they sell through their authorized dealer network watches at, let's say, brand new $10,000, but the pre-owned be $20,000, right? So there are going to be some caveats to this. Maybe it won't be for the hottest models, or maybe once, or if I should say rather, there's a bit of a pullback in the market and that triple times quadruple retail price markup doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it'll help them kind of prop up the bottom of the market and give them a floor on the pricing of the watches. I think this can go a bunch of different ways. I'm pretty excited to see if this does unfold and how they pull it off. What do you guys think? Have you heard of any of this chatter out there? I would read the article in the link in the description below and check it out. It's also just like a pretty good publication in general to see what's going on in the market. I comment on a lot of things there on this channel as well, so it's pretty interesting for anyone out there that takes an interest in this part of watch collecting. What do you guys think? Comments below. Please don't forget to thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I do appreciate it. You can check out delraywatch.com as well as my Instagram, The Real John P. Thanks, guys. You've been chatting with John P.